Hi there, I'm Aidan. I work in the mill. As Sol said, I graduated. I think it's 8 years ago now from Hertfordshire. So thanks for inviting me back. It's always great to be back here. Lots of fun memories. Kind of surreal seeing it all again. I'm also here. I shouldn't have put the fades on these. With Simon Wright, who's actually our recruiter. Simon is the man to go to if you want to talk about internships and things like that. He's in the front here. I think he's going to be on the panel later so you can ask some questions. And then I think after everything, feel free to come up and ask either myself or Simon anything you want at all. So what I normally do is kind of just show our reel because it's generally quite good and people enjoy it. So yeah, it's really cool. This is the latest show of 2014. So first of all, I'd just like to say for any students out there, this is a really good time to say, do not make a reel this long. It's a really bad way to get in. We kind of get away with it because we can do it, but yeah, keep your reel short. That's like ridiculously long. First of all, I'd like to just, for people who don't know what the mill do, it's actually getting kind of increasingly more difficult to kind of say what we do because we do so much stuff. In general, we collaborate with directors and creative agencies and brands directly to create mostly commercials, but also lots of different things, like we do stages for fashion shows and outdoor events and mobile apps, online, digital, wherever it is, we kind of have a bash at it. So that's kind of generally what we do. But we do have a kind of history of post-production, which is kind of what I do mostly. So today I wanted to, first of all, just apologize because all the cool stuff you saw on that reel, I'm not going to talk about any of it. I'm just going to talk about the stuff that, selfishly, that I've worked on. I'm a CG lead in the 3D department in London, and I just kind of wanted to show 3 much smaller projects that I've worked on in the last year, basically, since I did the last talk here last year. All of them kind of had a similar time frame of about 4, 5, 6 weeks. So it just kind of gives you a good insight as to what you might expect if you're going to apply for a job in somewhere like the Mill or Frame Store, MPC, etc. And just go through what my responsibilities are to get a job out the door and the process from kind of start to end. And I am going to blag it a bit because I haven't really rehearsed this, so please be patient. This is a job for Audi, which is, we're actually finishing today, I think. Well, I should know, we are finishing today, and it's going to be on air very soon in the UK. This is actually an English version of the German adapt for the commercial, so I'm allowed to show you this. The UK version coming out next week is going to be very similar. So this is the final product.
Everything we know about efficiency, we learned on the track. By connecting hundreds of ideas, we've brought that efficiency to the road. Ideas like Audi TDI engine technology or Audi Drive Select that all together lead to exceptional fuel economy. The Audi A4 Avant Ultra.
So that's that. There's just a few things. So first thing that happens is when we get to pitch on a job, basically. It's the most probably important time in the project is you're trying to win work, and we're constantly trying to win work. And to do that, we work with the studios and we work with agencies to basically kind of show some tests and say, like, we can do this job and we're going to do better than Frame Store, MPC, whatever. And they do the same with us. So we're all like try to win the job, basically. But it's actually a really good phase in the job, and I really love doing it and working with directors very closely and with other companies. I'm actually going to show you 2 pitches that we did for this job. Actually, I'll first of all say that what I just showed you was directed with Passion. So we're very collaborative. Passion actually came in and directed with us, and so we did all the CG, and they directed a guy called Chris Curtis is the director. So first of all, what happened first is actually we were in touch with Blink, and Blink is a production company who asked us to help out with the pitch. So we worked with them and created some stills to try and win the job. So I'm just going to quickly kind of go through some of the stills that we did. And to give you a rough idea, we had about 2 days to do these. So it's a combination of 3D and Photoshop kind of painted over on top. So quite abstract, quite graphic was the kind of brief from Audi itself. So this was ours and Blink's interpretation of what they wanted. So nice kind of sports car stuff. And that was kind of like the key image. So that was very quick turnover, like I said, about 2 days work. and managed to get those out, and really, really happy with it. And the next step was winning it. And unfortunately, these images did not win the pitch. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. People put a lot of time and effort into these things. The Audi, loved them, but that was not the style they're after. They're after something a lot more kind of nice, ethereal, and kind of light, because their cars are light, apparently, and they don't emit anything bad and nasty. So, so I think maybe the previous one is a bit too kind of motorsporty and stuff like that. So they wanted to get away from that. So this is what Passion actually did. So now they didn't like the feathers. They took out the feathers, but you get the idea of how kind of light it is. The projector is very light, actually. Everything's kind of going a bit white, but you kind of get the idea that it was a very kind of different vibe, but it's for the same script. And the idea was the dominoes connecting the ideas from the R18. What was it? The ideas they put into the R18 have been transferred to this car. So, and here's another kind of key visual. And that did win the pitch in the end. So that went to Passion. So I'll just show you one more time, just so it's in your minds.
Everything we know about efficiency, we learned on the track. By connecting hundreds of ideas, we've brought that efficiency to the road. Ideas like Audi TDI engine technology or Audi Drive Select that altogether lead to exceptional fuel economy. The Audi A4 Avant Ultra.
So one of the things about this job, which is quite unique for us, was the amount of 2D there was in it. Actually, we used After Effects a lot, which we kind of don't use that much. And there was a reason behind that. We only, like I said, we only had pretty much 5 weeks from initial previs to the final film, which is really, not a lot of time at all. So that was the best way we could kind of fit everything in, and actually it kind of works really well. There's no reason to kind of go and film or build a big kind of motorsport stadium or anything like that, because it could just be done in Photoshop, and it was all kind of collage and montage. So it was really kind of a nice way around getting around the timeline. So this is a very early animatic. So this is, I think, what was drawn by the director. Oh, I've just skipped it. Yeah. So this is what we're kind of given very early on. In this case, it was Chris Curtis who was kind of sitting next to me for the duration of the project, kind of drawing out frames, sticking them into After Effects, and trying to get a rough kind of timing together. Just to try and, the really bare bones basics. I'm sure you guys are doing that as well on your films, and it's done on pretty much every job we do as well. It's probably the most important part. And as you saw in the Frame Store presentation there, the film Gravity could not have been made without this kind of phase. Similarly, now our previs isn't as good as those guys, but we do a very crude previs for the same thing. So that's just taking the storyboard, putting in some rough models like this, and just trying to get a feel for timings, a little bit of animation, and it's the next step, basically. This is then kind of something that we'd send to the agency, and the agency would then present that to Audi, Mr. Audi we called him. His name's not Mr. Audi, but in Germany. So they'd actually fly over to Germany and show him this kind of thing. And things like, oh, why is everything grey would come up. But, they don't really kind of understand what this is that we're doing. And once we explain, it's just for timings, then they kind of get it. And hopefully, most of the time, they approve something like this eventually. And then that means we kind of start the production. So this is just a kind of montage of the previs and then to the final kind of renders. I won't go into, oh, I just skipped it. I won't go into it at all. I won't really go into the rendering. I mean, it was kind of all studio lighting. We render everything pretty much using Arnold. And then when we did a comp in Nuke, we then sent that up to After Effects, and then After Effects put all these kind of shadows and like guys on top, and you get your kind of final look. So it's just kind of showing the evolution of each shot, and then it goes right back to the drawing, I think, yeah. So from that to that. And actually this job went really, really smoothly. I mean, I think I had to because of the time constraints, but it just goes to show how important the sketches are and the previs. And then seeing, you know, once everyone is on board with each stage, you know, you can do a job very smoothly. We tend to find if it isn't done properly, you know, the previs isn't done properly up front, or someone's not on board with an idea, that's when the problems happen at a later date. So we always try and avoid that. It's all about planning, really. Cool. So I'll just show you some R&D that we did, because these thousands and thousands of dominoes. We actually used soft image, XSI, for the job, and we used ice for the simulation of the dominoes that were falling over. We got the R18 car from Audi, and this was kind of kept under wraps because it's only just launched, so this is kind of brand new. We got the CAD data from Audi as well, so about 1 million pieces that we had to kind of go through and chuck out half of. And then we had, obviously, a bit of R&D on the dominoes. It went through lots of different phases: carbon fiber, steel, kind of metallic, and we went through many versions of this. And I think we ended with this one, which was the hero kind of domino, take a bow, and then each domino had a different icon in it. So I think we had something like 40 different icons that we kind of had. So we were actually told that if we froze the frame, every single icon had to be different. This is an early domino test we did, just to kind of show what it might look like in a white environment. And I think when the client saw this, they kind of relaxed a bit, because it's a very difficult job to kind of visualize. So that's that. And I don't think I'm going to show you again, because you've seen it too many times now. So have I. So that's Audi. So I'll just quickly go into Comfort. You've probably seen some of these. You probably haven't seen this one because I think it's for Vietnam and Thailand. But we do a lot of these commercials for Comfort for all around the world. And I thought it'd be a really good one to show you because it's kind of right up your alley, because you're doing full animation. I know some of you are doing visual effects, so I'm trying to mix it up a bit. But this is a very similar kind of 5-week schedule to do from kind of start to finish. And I'm just going to quickly run through this as well. So that's Comfort. Comfort's actually a very kind of big part of what we do. We do a lot of this, like I said. We do a lot of print for them and a lot of animations. And actually that was directed in-house. So what we're doing at the moment is with Mill Plus, we have a lot of directors and we're creating our own content now. So in this case, we've kind of gone direct to Unilever and said, we'll direct your ad for you. And they said, that's great. And it's going really well. I mean, it makes sense to do it because we have all the talent that we need most of the time in-house. So that's what we're doing at the moment. I just wanted to talk about what my personal responsibilities are. There's a few of us leads, there's about 10 or 12 of us in the Mill, London, and obviously in our different offices, there's lots of them as well. But as a lead, you're basically responsible for creating cool stuff, which people like. I mean, it really comes down to that. It has to look really good. There's a bar that's up here that just keeps getting raised and raised. And I think like Framestore and Gravity, they just raise it like again. So we're constantly trying to reach that bar. But it's also about management and trying to make sure that you have a certain amount of money and you have a certain amount of time, and you have to basically smash them all together and make sure that the end result works nicely. Sometimes corners have to be cut, but in general, if it's planned well, everything goes quite smoothly. First thing is pitching, which I already talked about with Audi. It's the first thing that happens. Then we'd quote the job, so you kind of get a rough idea from a storyboard, hopefully, of what's involved. So you actually talk to your producer and say, it's going to cost £500 million to make this monkey. And then you kind of requote it because they say, we don't have £500 million to make a monkey. So that's stage 2. Hopefully you win the job, in which case you go to the pub, which is great. It's my favorite part of the job. You get the storyboards, you kind of iron out the storyboard, you create the previs. We always encourage directors to sit down with us and do a previs, but often we'll just be given the task as a lead to do what you think will kind of fit in, or a director might come and say, oh, I'm on a set and I have a crane and it's this high, how low can I go and at what speed? And we'll also do that. We'll also help directors on set with speeds and Milo rigs and things like that. So we can program Milos to do motion control and things like that. So you then present your previs to the agency, you're presenting it all the time, actually, throughout the whole thing. We don't do dailies that often. We do kind of every 2 days, we kind of send updates to agency and clients, and in which case one of them will freak out and say, what the hell am I looking at? So you've got to be able to deal with that and say, no, look, it's just, we haven't rendered yet, don't panic, it won't be grey, it'll be a colour, so, stuff like that. Then you address the feedback. So you'll get feedback from director, agency, producers, and you're going to get feedback from the client, of course, which is the most important feedback as well. Pipeline, you have to set up a pipeline. So in Comfort, every asset is kind of built and it lives in its own little world, scene, and it can be updated, and we publish assets. And I think MPC and Framestore and the bigger companies probably have a much, much bigger pipeline than we do. But we have an asset system whereby you can create a model, you can texture it, you can shade it, you can render it, and then you cache it out and you animate a very low-res proxy, you cache the animation out, and in your render scene you just have mesh. You don't have any rigs or anything like that nasty that will just destroy your scene. So we have a very kind of streamlined pipeline, and it's all about maintaining that, and everyone on the team knows how to use that. It's very important. And then general overseeing the production. So, I mean, what I'm kind of doing now, I'm doing less and less 3D myself nowadays. I kind of do a lot of the previs and pitching and stuff like that. And then the rest of it's kind of just making sure that everything is kind of going to plan and talking on conference calls and stuff with directors, agencies, and clients. But towards the end of the project, everyone gets their hands dirty. Quality control, big, huge part of the thing. If something doesn't look right, or it just doesn't, cut the mustard, then it's kind of my responsibility to say, no, that looks a bit crap, and do it again. And then we deliver, and we go to the pub, and then that's another really good time. And then after that, we go to the pub again. So lots of drinking involved. It's great. You're going to love it. Yeah. So I'll just give you a quick. I'm just going to I'm cherry picking little bits here, but storyboards. These are actually really good boards we get from. I think they're done in Thailand. So these are actually coloured in and everything. A lot of the time they're not. I mean, but these are actually really good kind of boards to see what needs to be. What's the key thing? What do Comfort or Unilever want to see in a frame? Because really, that's what it's all about, is what their product looks like. There's some more. I'm just going to skip through them. This is really boring. This is schedules. So, but it might actually interest some of you. If there's any producers here, sorry, but I think you've got the most boring job ever. Scheduling is such a important part of the job, and it's without a schedule, your job will film or whatever you're creating will fall down. I was really bad at it when I was at university, and I hated doing it. But actually, if you embrace the schedule and take it on board and look at it every day, it gets less and less frightening, and you know exactly where you are and where you should be. And if that kind of goes amiss, then you need to say, well, how has that happened? Sometimes it's to do with money or the schedule, or sometimes the delivery date gets brought forward, and which throws all your schedule out the door. But without a schedule, you really don't know where you are. And I think it's very important for you people to you guys to see this and know that this is such a huge, important part of the process when you're making a film, a short, a commercial, whatever. You need to schedule, you need to stick to the schedule. And this is only one page of probably about 20. So, but it's honestly, it's not as scary as it seems. This is an example of some feedback. So this is from the director, Russell Appaford, who's a Mill Plus director for Comfort. So this is basically, I don't know if you can read that, but it's very small. But he's basically just asking us to change bits and bobs here and there. You get stuff like this on a pretty much daily basis. So it's a lot of the time working things out with the director and saying, yes, we can do this, or sometimes you have to say, sorry, there's no time. But you generally try and keep directors happy because you don't want an angry director on your team, and give them what they want. And sometimes that requires a director's cut, which we often do as well for people. But generally speaking, we try and do everything that the director wants. But it's not a kind of one-sided approach. It's very much collaborative. So if there's something on the list that we don't agree with, we'll just tell them, and we'll try and maybe come to an agreement or a middle ground of some sort, and that's absolutely fine as well. And this is an example of some agency feedback, which is kind of written a lot more colloquially, but it's a similar kind of thing. Now, these are the guys who have written the script, so for them, it's their baby, I guess, and seeing it for the first time. So in there's a few negatives, lots of positives, actually, and it's very good kind of feedback. It's very concise and to the point, and it's all about communication. So oftentimes, you kind of come into work and you have a list of feedback like this, and then it's going through with the director and picking out what's the most important thing. So this is something that you'll kind of, when you get into the industry, you'll be asked to change something and you think it's amazing and it's the best thing you've ever made, and someone else will think it's probably the worst thing they've ever seen. You've got to be able to change that and not get upset about it and just say, right, it's just what they want. That's it. And you just got to do what they say. But you can collaborate on things and suggest things as well. Yeah. So that's that. So just go through some concepts. We've got a really cool, really good concept team in the mill, and they're like really important. Without concept design, everything kind of can look kind of weird and go amiss. And actually, up front, we do a lot of concept work in Photoshop, and we send it to the client and agency as a kind of mood board, or as a this is what it might look kind of thing. And a lot of the time, that's what kind of signs off a job actually, and it wins pitches as well. So I'll just give you some rough examples. We do some character design. I'm not sure what her name is. I've forgotten her name. But that's what the mum in Comfort was kind of based on. So we did lots of variations of her. And these are all kind of really quick. You're kind of talking just half a day's kind of work. They didn't like the hair, so in Photoshop, not 3D, because it would take much longer in 3D. In Photoshop, you can just go in and paint some new hair on top of her and change your textures and everything like that. It's a very cost-efficient way of doing things. And some nice concept for the sunlight. That whole idea is that it's really hot and sticky and sweaty. So some lovely matte paintings. One for the fountain as well. So this is good for modeling as well. So, and then these are just some kind of turntables of our little cloth people. And we have the lights turning around just to show that our lighting is all kind of working and is not like something buzzing or a shader that's not kind of looking right. But it's also, these characters will be sent to client for approval, and they might say, no, I don't like his denim hair, can you make it, I don't know, leather or something like that, although that'd be weird. And here's a cat, because I just thought it was funny. It doesn't have, so you get the gist. So I'm just racing through. So this is the previs for the ad. She's looking the wrong way. Yeah. I wish Nicholas would be here. He'd be like taking the piss out of me now. But you can see it serves its purpose, which is timing, where characters should be, how many characters are in the scene. It's rough as hell. That whole thing was probably done in a day, but suddenly you've got something to work with, you know, and it's a starting point. It's a point where you say, right, that's the wrong character. Get this person in. The timing's all wrong. Where's the product? All that stuff. It's really important. Can I just say we didn't do the sound? It's horrendous. It's okay. Like, they did it in Thailand. They don't know I'm doing this. It's fine. So one last one is FIFA, which was a very big job that we did last summer, I think. It's all a blur. This was a job for FIFA Sports, and it involves people in the desert playing FIFA on big screens that are suspended by a parachute that's coming out of Lionel Messi's van. And I remember reading the script and just thinking, oh my God, what is this? You know, this is crazy. So let me show you FIFA first.
It's in the game.
It's pretty weird, eh? I still don't really get it. This was a very difficult job to work on, and I'll explain why. Sometimes, every now and then, we get a job like this whereby actually the planning hasn't been so good. And I'm not going to just cherry pick everything and talk about the nice things. We do deal with a lot of jobs whereby they're very difficult to kind of see through to the end and to kind of get what everyone wants on screen. And it really is a kind of good case in point where actually there was no previs for this job, and the storyboard was kind of very loosely followed. And it actually resulted in us putting far too many kind of resources and time into the job. Now, this is obviously financially not a very good thing for us, but it's important to say, I think, because it is a problem with the industry, I think, in post-production, and needs to be addressed. And I'm not sure how we address it, but I think it's important to kind of say. And I think that the solution is actually the more pre-production, the better. You saw Gravity today, you saw how smoothly it goes, and the other two jobs went like fine. When you don't have previs and we should be included from day one, everything should go fine. So it's perhaps bad planning, but it was a very difficult job because not much was shot, to be honest. And I'll show you some before and afters just to show you. But every single shot had something to be done on top of. So when you kind of approach a job like that, it's very difficult to quote as well when people's minds keep changing as well. It's very important. Remember, in the list, quoting was up there at the top. Sometimes you kind of come down the list and actually you've got to quote again because the workload increases and increases. So that's stuff that we've got to deal with as well. But everyone kind of pitches in and, you know, we kind of muck in and we get to it. We get there in the end. So this is some of the shoot reference that was taken. So basically chairs. And this was shot in Spain. So that was pretty much it. So for the set. And also nothing really moved. So these chairs don't have wheels, they don't have anything, and yet the whole ad is moving kind of thing. So it would have been very difficult to do this in real life, but also I think when it came down to the final edit that we got from the offline, when we saw how many wide shots there were, it was, we suddenly realized actually how much work we had to do, and we ended up having to make CG people and everything. So let's just do some cool stuff, R&D. So the R&D was quite easy, actually. We just had to build lots of chairs like this. And there's about 50 of these, so I'm not going to show you them. Like I said, we're using Arnold, so everything's kind of physically accurate, and we've got HDRIs from set, so a supervisor will be out on set. It wasn't myself, it was a colleague who would be out there taking HDRIs. I'm sure all you guys know how to do that. We do it exactly the same way you do it. And we model all these assets. We did some tests, so we knew that they'd wanted dust coming out of the back of the seats, so we did simulations of dust coming out. Lots of those. I think that's a really cool one. And I think that got used a lot. So we reuse assets a lot, obviously. So this is some before and after stuff, and this is the kind of, this is still R&D. So this was a very initial test. Like, we basically just got asked to do a parachute with a TV hanging out of it, and that's what we came up with. So we actually we did the concept for it, and we did some sketches, and we did the 3D and the wires. That was all ourselves doing that. So because we couldn't really visualize it, we didn't really know what this would look like. This looked a bit flimsy and it looked like it could never be held up. So we added some supports and some extra parachutes that we thought might be able to kind of hold the weight a bit better. So this kind of thing in front, that thing kind of, it felt like that could hold it up. But we just kind of made it up as we went. And that was kind of the design they went with in the end. And that was version like 40, so that was 1 and 40. There's lots of in-between ones. And I don't know if you even noticed, but in the background there's some like houses on balloons in the background, like just to add to the weirdness of this ad. And actually they're quite detailed, and I think they're like tiny little things in the end. So we did lots of these as well. So a bit of asset building. And this is quite a fun part of the job. This is the offline. So this is what, if you don't know, offline is basically the edit. So after you shoot the commercial, you go to an edit suite and sit down with an editor. An editor will go through and try and get the timings out, similar to previs, but with the live action footage that has been shot. Everything is kind of low resolution, just because it's easier to edit, like on low resolution things. And then he'll also stick in little proxy clips, animation, where the VFX will be put in. So this is what we were given.
Get you someday.
Cool. So that was the offline, and I think when we saw that, we went, "Oh, okay, we've got a bit more to do than I thought we were going to have to do." So let me just go through a couple of stills. I didn't have the assets I needed to do a moving one, so I've just done some stills very crudely, so apologies for this. But I'll just kind of show you what we did, so before and after. Now, actually, it doesn't look like we've done much there when I do it like that. Oh, just lost the slide. Sorry, but if you look at the car, it's actually reflecting the environment. obviously it's in a studio, so we've got to get rid of the studio, but also the reflections had to be replaced, which meant that we have to replace the car. So we had to match move the car and the camera. And to add to the difficulty, actually, everything was shot on anamorphic lenses, which just doesn't really help. It doesn't really help us. It also is missing a windscreen, and the wing mirrors are reflecting a studio. So, like but when you see the final thing, it doesn't look like we've done much, but actually, we've done quite a lot to it. And I mean, that's all fine. That's kind of what we're used to. So, this is kind of our bread and butter, really. This was quite a nice one because we had to kind of try and change the time of day a bit through grading. And then obviously stick in the parachute and all that. So that's kind of before and after. So we kind of made it look a bit more like midday because they shot that at sunset, but the commercial happens during the day. So we had to try and change the time of day, which is quite tricky, and stick in all the 3D stuff. And they did have about 6 or 7 of these kind of rigged up motorcycle chairs, which were good, but they had a kind of engine and wheels attached to the back. So we obviously had to paint out all of those and then add some more people coming in. And they were all kind of added in 2D with some plates that we got, and then add in the car and the parachutes. And this one, we just kind of added people. Oh, and every shot had green, and they didn't want any green in the ad. So every single shot, we had to get rid of that. So which meant that every shot has a kind of matte painting as well. So it just meant that everything kind of had to be tracked. And then we put in a few hundred people in the background as well as we go through. And here, another example. You kind of go through, put some mountains in, remove the rigs, put some CG people in. You kind of just get away with it because it's motion blur. This one's good. Can you see the house? There it is. Oh no, I think I've just, sorry, hit the wrong button. I wish I didn't do fades. It takes ages. And the flag. Oh, and the end shot. I think we did something like a million chairs in the end. It got to the point where it was like a pixel in the background, and we just had to say, look, you're never going to see that. So I think actually in the background we have a painting of cars as well, just to add to it, and then lots of dust and stuff like that. So I'll show you again.
In the game.
Cool, so that's it, yeah. I'd urge you to do check out our website. We've actually got a really cool Vimeo account as well, where you can see loads of making ofs. We do a lot of these kind of presentations. There's a really good one on the Monkey, the PETA project, which is really interesting, and interviews with the Mill Plus directors on that. So do go onto the website. There's a whole load of stuff, and yeah, check it out. Does anyone have some questions? Or do I have time for questions? Just one. Oh, just one, oh God.
The one over there.
We never go over. That's if something goes wrong on the agency side, or there's money, or someone changes their mind last second, we can go over, but we'll be the deadline can be pushed. But actually, it's just a rule. You cannot miss your deadline. If you miss your deadline, you're in really big trouble. And scheduling-wise, we know upfront how long we have. So you're scheduled in, as a lead, you're scheduled in for the whole thing, but we schedule in people as and when we need them. No, the last week is the emergency time frame, or the last night. Yeah.
That's great. Oh, well, thank you so much, Aidan.